Hello everyone, this is part 43 of What If Naruto Passed the Genin test, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Naruto and Ino both woke early the next morning, an hour before sunrise. The rain had stopped sometime earlier that morning, leaving the whole landscape of the island, the parts the dueling ninja hadn't reduced to a smoldering waste at least, fresh and green. At first the two of them simply sat in each other's arms and enjoyed the other's quiet company. As so often happens though, they began to talk, and Naruto felt it was his responsibility to fill Ino in on the details to what exactly had transpired while she was Orochimaru's prisoner. He felt no threat in explaining exactly what had gone on, what he had done, and his motives, even though he expected Ino to strongly disagree with his methods. He told her about the highlights of his journeys with Jiraiya, about the recent politics among the villages and Tsunade becoming Hokage, how it seemed most of the world was at war, and about his promotion above the law. The Cage Genin even told Ino about his interactions and political maneuverings to retain his position, leaving out only the detail that he had orchestrated Kakashi's death to get Sakura where he wanted her. Naruto even went so far as to divulge his midnight escapades with Sakura to ensure her loyalty and his successful plan to raise Kiri. She deserves to know the truth, he told himself, no matter what she'll think of me for it. Throughout it all, Ino leaned quietly against him, and listened to every detail of the story. She was calm and collected throughout, but when Naruto mentioned sleeping with Sakura, she did stiffen just a bit despite her best efforts to remain tranquil. Naruto's arms tightened around her in response. I wanted you to know the whole truth, said Naruto. You deserve to know everything that happened and that I trust you with all of this. It was the first time he'd ever been so completely, or near completely honest with anyone. Ino nodded once. Thank you, Naruto, she said evenly. Naruto waited for her to respond, half expecting her to push away from him and try to leave. Surprise began to twinge all over him when Ino neither lashed out at him nor tried to stand up. Quite to the contrary, he felt her settle against him even more and breathed a sigh that sounded almost happy, at the very least, relieved. Well, Naruto finally probed, unsure how to act. He'd been preparing himself to cope with her anger and possibly even revulsion. What? Well, Ino asked. You're not mad. Naruto's voice sounded surprised and almost childlike in tone. Ino smiled to herself and leaned her head back on Naruto's shoulder. How could I be? She asked. I just spent the last, however many years of my life in hell and stuck in my own mind with a demon. Then the person I care about most in the world risks his life and saves me from it. How could I be angry with you, Naruto? The Cage Genin breathed a sigh. I just thought you might, I don't know. I've done some things most people would think are horrible. You told me about it, said Ino. I didn't have to find out on my own or anything. You confessed to it all without me even asking, expecting me to be angry about it, and all because you thought I deserved to know. Naruto, that's the kind of trust most people only dream of having with someone. Naruto didn't know what to say. I may not like what you did, said Ino, her voice was only a bit more stiff, but Naruto could sense that she was sly serious now. Let me be perfectly honest about that, and I hope that from now on things will be different. I can only hope you try to make things right, but still. Her words softened again. It means the world to me that you trust and respect me like that, especially after everything that's happened and how long we've been apart. That's part of it, Naruto smiled. And don't worry. From now on there won't be any need for underhanded tricks, with our allies at least. Tsunade will force Kumo to surrender, and then once we take out Orochimaru the war will be over and things can finally be the way they should be. We've come so far already, nothing can stop us. You sure are a hero, said the Kunoichi, giggling. Despite my best efforts, muttered Naruto. All this time I've been trying to do whatever I thought was right regardless of what it meant for everyone else. He paused and looked down at Ino as she looked curiously up at him. But that's all going to be different now, he smiled at her. Once we both get back to Konoha, no, even now, everything is starting to change. Ino nodded once. I hope you're right, she said hesitantly. Naruto, how do you think people will react when I come back with you? The cage Genin grinned and chuckled quietly. I have no idea, he said. I'd imagine Sakura won't be too happy, and soon it will probably question your loyalty for a while, but what can any of them do about it? I don't know, said the girl. I just hope they don't try to court-martial you for this. She smiled meekly. I don't think they would, said Naruto. I'll make it perfectly clear that you have my full confidence, so the worst that can happen is they assign someone to watch you. It would probably be Shikamaru or some other head of Anbu. Okay. Naruto waited for a moment, then loosened his grip on her a little. But, not to be rude, he said, how about we go and reintroduce you to everyone? Ino smiled and stood up, then gave Naruto a hand to his feet. Neither one wanted to leave though, and Naruto quickly pulled Ino back into his arms, a gesture she gladly and quickly returned. Both started to laugh, but didn't let go. I could get used to this, said Ino, feeling and enjoying the warmth that rolled off Naruto in waves. Me too, Naruto responded. But we probably should get going. I know. Neither one let go. Shikamaru shook his head. I still don't like it, he muttered as they ran. Naruto, she was Orochimaru's agent. It's extremely likely she actively worked against, and killed dozens of Konoha's men. She is dangerous and I am not going to trust her. Which is exactly why I ordered my bodyguards to watch her, said Naruto. The water sped beneath both ninja, and the other 60 members of Naruto's strike force as the whole group of ninja moved in 2 columns over the sea, separating the water country's territory from the mainland. You know, the 3 of them are trustworthy. Naruto had been right. Shikamaru was not happy when Naruto and Ino greeted him at the designated assembly location a few miles south of the ruined village of Kiri. Trina, Alicia, and Karena were far from pleased as well. Shikamaru even went so far as to ready to attack Ino, but Naruto positioned himself between the two, directly in Shikamaru's line of fire, and instantly the sisters had leapt on the Nara to defend Naruto. While he was surprised at Shikamaru's uncharacteristic aggressiveness, Naruto was pleasantly reminded that this new Shikamaru was rabidly loyal to Konoha and would do anything, regardless of how self-destructive, to protect the village. As the rest of the strike force successfully returned from the various villages and hamlets they'd been ordered to raise, Naruto explained to Shikamaru that Ino was free of the demon. That he'd confronted it and destroyed it with a Yamanaka mind trick he'd learned years ago from Ino's mother. Not all of his story was a lie. The Anbu nin was hesitant, but with a little more prodding and explaining from Naruto, eventually relented. He was not, however, convinced that Ino was completely trustworthy, only that Naruto would defend her, effectively extending his immunity to Ino. That's the only reason I'm letting her come with us, muttered Shikamaru, glaring at Naruto with his one good eye. And as soon as we get back to Konoha, I'm going to have her confined for the duration of the war. Fine, said Naruto. But you're going to feel very silly once this is all over and you realize you detained someone who could have been a powerful ally. Shikamaru was silent as they went, leading the pack. So he's willing to let me confine her, Shikamaru noted as the daylight faded. At least that shows he trusts my judgment, or is he only saying that to gain my confidence so he can release her once we get back? No, if he were planning on using his rank to keep her freedom, he knows that would be enough for me to take my concerns to Tsunade and have him stripped of his privileges. He'd gain nothing by pulling rank, and that would, as he sees it, relieve Konoha of one of its best chances at victory. Naruto stole a look at Shikamaru out of the corner of his eye. Shikamaru, he thought, I do hope you realize that I'm going to let you take Ino into custody, that I don't have a choice there, but it's best if we keep you placated. He looked back to Ino as she ran, surrounded by the sisters. The 2 blondes smiled at each other. Naruto had informed Ino that she was probably going to be escorted back to Konoha and watched once there. She was fine with it. Sorry, beautiful, but it will keep you safe until this is over, if nothing else. Shikamaru is a smart guy. He knows what will happen if he lets anything happen to you. Speaking of Nara Shikamaru, Naruto thought again, I can only hope he's perceiving my prudence as pride. If I can keep him thinking that I think I'm Konoha's best shot, it will keep him thinking I wouldn't do anything to endanger myself, such as abusing my position. Of course it's all true, but I just need him to either see, or think he sees it as true. The large group of ninja moved on faster as night slowly came over the sea. Naruto's orders had been to reach the border of the Fire Country by midnight, and he wanted to be back in Konoha within a few hours of making landfall. A lofty goal, Shikamaru had called it, but Naruto knew his men were capable of making it in the allotted time, given that they were all eager to be home and the pace of their journey reflected it. There were to be no breaks or rest stops on the way home, saving the team hours of wasted time. More than anything though, Naruto wanted to get back to Konoha and make sure that the inevitable confrontation between Sakura and Ino took place as quickly as possible, and with him there to make sure things went smoothly. He knew full well that Ino would emerge from the conflict unscathed. The control she demonstrated during his revelations assured Naruto of that, but Sakura was another story. She was sure to degenerate into an emotional mess and pull out all the stops, trying everything to drive Ino off, or at the very least away from Naruto. I'll have to assure her that I still want her to be a part of my shining new world, Naruto thought. But she has to come to realize on her own that she can't be the part she wants to be. I think we can manage that, but the trick is going to be to make her content with her station long enough for her to do the job. Unfortunately, Sakura hasn't matured in the same way Ino has. Sakura's been feeding her fantasies while Ino has been completely woken from them. They make interesting foils of one another. Naruto closed his eyes and let his movements become autonomous, just enjoying the silence as he tuned out the world and thought about Ino. The excitement of finally having her again was still fresh in his mind, making him feel invincible. I finally did it, he mused. She's back, and from here it's a short road to victory. Kit, the voice rolled into Naruto's mind. Are you awake? Yes, Naruto mumbled mentally. What is it, Kyuubi? I assumed you were but wasn't sure. I just thought that you're not busy with your vixen right now and you're going to be running over this sea for the next few hours. This would be a good opportunity to train a bit. Naruto nodded. It would. So you'll take control of my body and make sure I don't go running into anything then. He felt Kyuubi growl the affirmative. I'll let you know once we reach the shoreline and you can take control back then. Naruto sighed and quickly relaxed. The black walls of his consciousness gave way around him and he felt the cool shroud of his subconscious take shape. He opened his eyes and found himself in the infinite dark space surrounding Kyuubi's massive, birdcage of a pen. I'm getting good at this, said the blonde, reaching out and setting his hand on one of the huge cage's bar. I can show up anywhere in here I'd like. Kyuubi looked down at his guest from the confines of his cage, shook his head once. I'm so proud of you, said the demon sarcastically. You've learned to navigate your own mind. And I didn't even need a shrink, chuckled Naruto, putting his arms up behind his head and grinning as he grabbed his elbows, just a life-threatening confrontation with an incarnation of pure evil. You're a ninja, Kit, it always takes a life or death situation to make you improve. Kyuubi shifted his head to one side and glanced at Naruto again with one big eye, leaning down as he did and pressing the side of his head up to the bars of the cage. Naruto dropped his arms to his side and looked at Kyuubi. What? Asked the cage Genin. You really have changed considerably already, said the demon. Not many of your human peers can tell, but I can feel it, like a weight so heavy has been lifted from your mind that even I can breathe a little more easily. You're more glad to have Ino back than you ever would have guessed. Naruto smiled. So he can feel it too. Yeah, said the blonde, pacing inside the bars and sitting down across from Kyuubi. To be perfectly honest, I feel different. He laughed once. I may not be an entirely new man, but I feel better, a bit less weighed down. You sound like a recovering addict, Kyuubi chortled. Does this mean then that we won't be seeing any more villages? Probably not, said Naruto. Soon it will take down Kumo and from there we can move against Oto and Orochimaru. After he's S there will be no more need for mass S. Pity, said the demon matter-of-factly. Alas, but I suppose it's the way things must be, anyway. Right, I suppose it's time to get back to the whole training thing. Yes, during our time apart I devised a few interesting exercises you might find challenging. Or, teased Naruto, you were thinking of me while I was gone. Kyuubi's jaws snapped shut, not a foot from Naruto's left ear, throwing him off balance and making his hearing ring. Don't push your luck. Now, we need to quickly gauge how much you've improved while I was gone. Chakra control first. SC. Kyuubi's exercises were taxing to say the least. Naruto felt the full brunt of the demon's sadism in the mind-numbingly difficult tricks and feats he was forcing upon Naruto. While Kyuubi would lecture Naruto for hours and hours on random and seemingly trivial facts about old and long forgotten history or science, Naruto would be expected to hold a sphere of swirling chakra perfectly stable in the air 100 yards ahead of him. Once the lecture was finished, Kyuubi would assign Naruto a task even more difficult, such as balancing upside down on his head and rotating himself around in a circle at a constant speed while Kyuubi quizzed him on the minutest details of the lecture. Naruto began to curse how dramatically slow time could pass in his mind. By the time Kyuubi warned him that they were within a mile of the Fire Country's coast, more than a week had passed inside the confines of Naruto's subconscious, during which time he was allowed no reprieve. Kyuubi called the testing intensive, and said it was to properly measure what Naruto was now capable of. Naruto called the exercises something more obscene. So, asked Naruto, letting the floating ball of energy in front of him dissipate. Did I pass? Kyuubi shook his head, tossing his golden red hair around a bit. There was no pass or fail. This was merely so I could determine what you're ready to learn and what you're capable of controlling. And, Naruto probed, you've grown considerably, but there's no way for me to say exactly how much. If I had to place you, I'd say you're about as scared now as that Neji character was 3 years ago. Of course you have much more power to draw on now than he did then, and you're perhaps a bit more clever. Your reserves of stamina are also much surer. I'll take that, said Naruto, leaning back on his elbows and resting a bit. Even 3 years ago Neji was someone to be reckoned with. Now, he looked up at the demon. I have a few questions that I need you to answer. Kyuubi shifted and sat up in an almost feline posture. I make no promises, said the demon. Naruto paused for a moment. While I was on my trip with Jiraiya, I didn't get many chances to do any research on the Maibans, but I did learn a little here and there if I got lucky, but you know a lot more than anyone else alive, I'm betting. Kyuubi nodded. What can you tell me about Uchiha Madara and the first Hokage? There's a lot of history there, but they were connected to Maibu, rumbled Kyuubi. What do you want to know about them? I read in an old text Sakura gave me that those two were the last two confirmed descendants of the Maiban Empire. Is that true? Kyuubi nodded. It is. Their heritage is most of the explanation for their power. Madara, and all Uchiha for that matter, were descendants of the Maiban warrior class. Their Sharingan has fallen considerably from its former power but remains a testament to their ancestry. The first Hokage hailed from the priestly class, hence his control over demons. Naruto thought for a moment. What about the Namikas? He asked. What about my father? The book also said there were rumors of the Namika's clan being Maiban. Kyuubi hesitated. Jiraiya hinted at it a few times while I was training with him, said Naruto. It wasn't hard to figure out. And why didn't you ever tell me any of this? The Namikas were the other half of the warrior class. They and the Uchiha were essentially there to check one another, but as the empire crumbled and the Namikas stretched themselves trying to hold everything together, the Uchiha grew proportionally more powerful and eventually rebelled. Their betrayal almost wiped out the Namikas, and put the last nail in Maibu's coffin. The empire fell apart too quickly though, and the continent was plunged into chaos before the Uchiha could find all the Namikas. And I had planned on telling you all of this, including your lineage, but you severed contact before I could get to that point in our schedule. There is a set pace at which you must learn if anything is to make sense. There was a great deal you didn't get to discover. Naruto hesitated, ignoring the demon's chidings. So you're saying I'm essentially Maiban? Kyuubi nodded. When those swords of yours activated for you, it was all the assurance I needed. I already suspected you to be the fourth son, but I couldn't be sure. It was almost like fate delivered the punchline to a cosmic joke when you wandered into that weapon shop. Maiban weapons will wake up for people not of the descent, but it's almost impossibly rare. That also explains why my other sword chose Sasuke. It sensed he was an Uchiha, makes sense. And your vixen was possessed by that slug of a demon, who could simply force the gauntlet to work for her. That probably explains the weapon's disrepair. Ino wasn't supposed to be the owner, and the demons forcing it was likely what created all of the micro fissures. This is a bit much, but a crash course is better than nothing, said Naruto. But it's explaining quite a bit. How long do Maibans live? Centuries at least, said Kyuubi. The 5 clans that made up the Maiban Empire were all ageless. They'd reach maturity and simply stop growing older. Of course they could still be killed by anything that could kill someone of lesser stature, but they would never grow old. Impossible, said Naruto, standing up. The first Hokage aged relatively normally. So did his brother. They weren't pure-bloods. The agelessness lies in heredity, and both Hokage's Maiban ancestors had interbred with lesser people. Now I can be relatively sure that your father Minato was a pure-blood, as both his parents came from a secretive but warlike family that prided itself on its bloodline, but I don't know anything about your mother. If she was from the Whirlpool or Bird Country, there's a chance of her being partially Maiban. Naruto grinned and began walking around. That is interesting. Now, does interbreeding with lesser people completely cancel out the agelessness or just dilute it? Both the first and second Hokages SD at a pretty average age. They were incredibly diluted, regardless of whatever any book might tell you, but yes, interbreeding only dilutes the agelessness. Given your father's genealogy, you might live 400 or 500 years if you don't get yourself ked. That was one reason I was so hated by everyone who knew about Maibu. Your father was incredibly powerful for a human, and he was a good leader, and he had the potential to live forever. That hatred filtered down into everyone below, the more educated, anyway. Now that Sasuke is the last Uchiha, their breeding doesn't matter as much, but as far as I know, Madara, their last real leader, was also the last pure-blooded Uchiha, and since he didn't have children. Kyuubi looked up and sniffed the air. You're approaching the coast now. The next time you come here, I'll give you a brief bit of Maiban history and we can start the real training again, though for now you had best return to yourself. There are ninja ahead waiting to meet you, and I can't tell where they're from. No trouble though. There are only 2. Naruto rolled his head around, popping his N, and straightened himself up. I'll see you later then. He looked up and focused on the seemingly infinite ceiling and immediately felt his consciousness returning to the outside world. Naruto's world went black and he opened his eyes. Exactly as he had been hours ago, Naruto was sprinting along the surface of the water next to Shikamaru and leading the columns of ninja. Ahead, maybe 200 yards in front of the blonde and standing on the sandy coastline, were 2 figures wearing black and red soused cloaks. SC. Sakura-sama sent us to intercept you, sir, said the taller of the 2 crane ninja who had met Naruto on the beach. She asked us to deliver this message personally. Naruto's strike force had spread out on the coast and waited patiently as Naruto and Shikamaru spoke privately with the crane operatives a few dozen yards away on the borders of the massive forest that made up most of the Fire Country. Ino was busy conversing and laughing with Naruto's 3 bodyguards. Are you sure this is correct? Asked Shikamaru incredulously, glancing down at the scroll the shorter of the operatives had handed him moments ago. Kimimaro and Kabuto are really S. The taller crane ninja nodded. The boss sent 2 of his best operatives after each one of them and sprung an ambush. Both missions were confirmed a success. Naruto twitched but didn't speak, instead letting Shikamaru continue. His eyes were intense though. How can you be positive? Asked the Shadow Nin, narrowing his good eye. The taller of the 2 agents, a good-looking man with black hair and a clear complexion, only grinned. Sir, with all due respect, he said, our men don't miss. Both of Orochimaru's top men are S and permanently so. Where was Kimimaro when the crane took him out? Asked Naruto, breaking in and crossing his arms. In Oto, said the shorter crane ninja, a man with a dark skin tone and brown eyes. He was hiding in the Sound Village when we tracked him down and ambushed him. Naruto grinned and nodded. Very good, he said, even as Shikamaru looked away. It's about time those bastards got what was coming to them. This should tip the balance in Konoha's favor even more. The 2 crane agents nodded agreement. It was our thought that now might be a good time for you to discuss with the steward the possibility of assaulting Orochimaru directly, now that he's under such extreme pressure. Naruto's grin faded. Possibly, he said, his tone unchanging. He quickly replaced his smile. I appreciate the news, gentlemen. But I have a favor to ask of you. Name it, Naruto-sama, the taller toned. Naruto pointed over his shoulder into the distant horizon on the sea. My men are tired and anxious to be home, he said, which is why I didn't want to ask any of them to do this, but I've heard reports of a small group of Kiri survivors organizing on an island a few miles south of the village of Matera. Could you 2 check it out for me while I continue back to Konoha? Absolutely, said the taller of the 2. It's our pleasure to serve. If we find any survivors, we'll be sure to let you know. Get to it then, said Naruto, his voice wavering for only a second. Shikamaru looked up and glanced between Naruto and the visitors. The two ninja bowed and acknowledged the order, then took off running past all the troops, drawing the attention of the entire strike force before sprinting onto the sea's surface and turning away towards the distance. Naruto probed Shikamaru, once he was sure they were out of earshot. How did they know there would be survivors from Kiri? Naruto's smile disappeared and he turned to face Shikamaru, speaking very quietly. I don't know, he answered. My decision to raise the village was completely impromptu and that Crane Nin acted like it had been part of the game plan. Naruto, this seems a little off. The blonde nodded. They were far too willing to go and hunt for the survivors of a conflict they shouldn't know about. As far as the Crane should know, we only harassed Kiri's supply lines. Not that, said Shikamaru, stepping a little closer to the cage Genin and holding the scroll out for him to take. This, he pointed to the top of the scroll. This message is dated from yesterday, and it says that Kimimaro and Kabuto were just killed today. How in the world could the Crane K2 agents, especially two like Kimimaro and Kabuto, especially when Kimimaro is in Oto, and then get the messages from both Oto and Iwa to Konoha, then to us, all in under 24 hours? I never worked for the Crane, but you did. Are they really that good? Naruto shook his head. No, he said. They're fast, but they're not that fast. Even when Jiraiya and I were king for them, we would make a hit outside Iwa and the news would have to go through 2 or 3 different channels before it got to any kind of authority. It was a delay tactic security measure the Crane implemented to help them maintain secrecy and anonymity. If they took out 2 hits, even the assassin's superiors wouldn't know about it for between 12 and 18 hours. Shikamaru was silent for a moment. This just feels wrong. What am I missing here? He asked, not sure how to respond to the Necro's feeling beginning to churn in his stomach. The same thing I am, said Naruto. Is this serious? Asked Shikamaru. It may be that we're blowing things out of proportion a bit, but it seems like the Crane knew exactly what was going to happen long, according to you, days before it happened. With something as unpredictable as an assassination of someone like Kimimaro involved, no one is that good. I know, said Naruto. The Crane would never suspend the delayed security, and even if they did it would take weeks to inform all the agents. There's just no way they could have gotten this to us so quickly. I don't know what that means but it feels bad. And they acted like they were expecting you to have raised Kiri, said Shikamaru. Sakura wouldn't have told them about that letter you sent her, would she? She might have told them that I defeated the village, that will be common knowledge back home, but I asked her to keep under wraps just how many civilians were killed. There shouldn't be any reason for those Crane ninja to suspect survivors would need a place to gather outside the village. Right, standard procedure is to leave a defeated village intact. Naruto hesitated. I don't like this, he said. Shikamaru nodded in agreement. I don't know what to say other than this doesn't seem right. What should we do about it? Asked Shikamaru. He's not trying to snare me, Naruto thought. Shikamaru is as rattled as I am. Play it by ear for now. When we get back to Konoha I'll see about sending a team, probably Jiraiya, myself and someone else to assassinate Orochimaru. This opportunity is too good to pass up, but I'm hesitant. Shikamaru, would you mind being a security measure for me? The Nara nodded. What did you have in mind? When we get back to Konoha and speak with Sakura I'm going to be all for attacking Oto directly. I'm going to demand we loose all our fury on them and wipe them off the map, and I want you to counter me. I want you to suggest to everyone that a shadow team, 2 or 3 at the most, be dispatched to take out Orochimaru. I'll argue and you'll say we don't need a repeat of the Kiri debacle. Shikamaru nodded. I can do that, he said. You'll eventually relent and agree to a more covert attack. It would fit my mentality perfectly to suggest such a tactic, and that way no one from the Crane will suspect we don't trust them. I'll stay behind in Konoha and watch the Crane like a hawk. If there's even the slightest hint of trouble or foul play I'm ordering them to leave the village. It's not like we really need them with Orochimaru on such a desperate defensive and almost a third of our troops at home with more soon to be on the return from Kumo. Naruto nodded. I'll instruct Ino to help you however she can. Call me paranoid, but I'm not about to leave Konoha in the hands of a garrison of outsiders. I may have worked for the Crane, but my love for my village outweighs my trust of a bunch of vagabonds who fight for the highest bidder. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.